twice a year, I'd have somebody asking for the 0.750 mil that Kubrick shot with. And I'm like, great, there are 3 of them still here on the planet Earth. The rest are on the moon. And that's one of the things that ZEISS is very good about, is the consistency lens to lens. They're like a nice warm hug. They have a lot of character. They're very cinematic. I don't want to tell everybody here, but no lens is perfect. Every lens has a look.
Except yours.
Oh no, ours do too. Absolutely. And that's why people choose them.
Hey everyone, I'm Rafi Salem, back with the Manhattan Edit Workshop. As always, we have Josh Apter and Jason Banke. And today, special guest, Tony from ZEISS, aka Tony Wisniewski. Did I get it right?
You got it.
But Tony from ZEISS is how Tony wanted to be introduced. So we got it all in there. First, before we start anything, Josh, I think you're going to have to talk about the Philadelphia Eagles and what you're wearing today. So
This
please
has
introduce yourself.
Okay, I'm going to introduce
that tidbit.
I'll do what I can. I'm not going to get into the full superstition. I am from Philadelphia and I'm an Eagles fan. I'm also the founder and owner of Manhattan Edit Workshop. And we have many, many classes in editing and production and color correction and sound design and all your favorites, Adobe and Avid and Resolve. And, it's always nice to sort of talk with people who are out there working with the things that our students are working with, including ZEISS, a longtime friend of ours. And in terms of the only Eagles fact I will give you is that I'm wearing this hat because I can't cut my hair, because if I do, the Eagles will lose. And I'm that superstitious. But for the show, I will let you see. Wow. This is much longer than it normally is. But I got to tell you, I like it. I don't like this, so I'm not going to put my hat back on. But at any rate, that explains the hat. Go Birds. The funny thing is, and I'll only go to this in a second, Jason's a huge Bills fan, lives in Long Island, had season tickets, would schlep up to Buffalo to see them play and table dive and act like a maniac. And should the Eagles and the Bills actually make it to the Super Bowl, this is the ultimate conflict, because yes, I would love it if the Eagles won, but I would be so happy to see the Bills win. Because why, Jason?
They're your playoff team? I don't know.
What haven't the Bills ever done?
Oh, well, I think everybody knows that. They haven't won.
I'm not sure that everybody knows anything.
Do you guys know they lost 4 Super Bowls in a row? I think everybody knows it.
I think
so.
I think the audience watching the Talkin' MEWShop might not be the same crowd. I'm just saying, they might not be the same exact crowd.
Mm-hmm.
Tony, are you a football fan?
I am agnostic. I root for whomever my kids tell me to root for.
There you go. See?
There you go. And they hate the Eagles. I know. It's okay. Everybody does.
Well, we do have some diehard Jets fans, but the Jets are consistent in that they just depress and take you down a sad path every year. So
yeah. Well, better the Jets than the Giants. That's all I have to say.
There you go.
So Jason, why don't you give a little introduction from your perspective, and then let's jump into Tony's introduction, and then we'll get into it.
Sure. Yeah. So I've worked with Josh for a long time. As you know, he said we've done we do a lot of classes and all the post and production stuff. I'll tell you, the other stuff that we do is we do events, and now we do these Talking MEWShops, but we do events, and that's actually how we came to know Tony, which I always known as Tony from ZEISS. We've met through our Sight Sound and Story events, and we'd have them, and when we had them in person, Tony would come, he'd set up all his gear, and I don't know how you got all that stuff from wherever you were coming from, but tons and tons of lenses, immense amount of stuff. But that like Josh said, that's one of the reasons we want to talk to folks like you, is because we do talk to the artists, but we also want to talk to people that know what people are using, and the way the technology and everything is like shifting all the time now, and how people are making films and content and everything else. We just thought that would be a great thing to get someone like you with, the lens side of it and all the technology that's going on in that. And then, I would turn it over to you to say, like, how, I know Josh wanted to ask you maybe you want to ask that first, Josh, like his backstart of as
No, we can talk about. I mean, look, I have questions about your music background. Let's talk about your current professional life first, and then we'll go digging. This is nonlinear. It's all nonlinear these days, so we don't have to start at the beginning.
Wow, you're going to go deep on me. Excellent. So I'm Tony from ZEISS, Tony Wisniewski. I started about just over 8 years ago doing marketing for both photo and cine, and have taken on a larger role in holistically in support of everything that we do on the cinema side as well as on the photo. So I can kind of flip back and forth and talk about music if you like. For us, the real focus is not only on the lenses, but all of the capture and acquisition data that's necessary. When you think about the video, it comes down to data. Not only is it what we see with our eyes, but it's everything that the camera can track as well. Because as you guys know from the edit side, you need all that data to be more accurate in your depiction and the assembling of any of the not only the visual but also the created aspects that are put onto the frame. So we are putting together more and more of that information in the form of camera tracking, lens calibrations, as well as the actual lenses. And we can talk about any one of those topics.
Well, why don't we start from the beginning, even though we're starting from the right now. I would love to know your history. You just piqued my interest in terms of music background, but I would love to know the backstory, the making
Sure.
of Thriller.
So yeah, for me, it's always been in the arts, and I've kind of come and gone through it. I first started out, I was going to be a music educator on a high school level, and there's always those epiphanies that you kind of take a pivot on, and for me, it was a band director on the conservatory level. We were sitting, and things weren't going right, and he went on a tirade about how horrible we were, and he ended with, if you're not willing to practice 3 hours a day, there's people out there starving that are better than you. And I said, you know what? You're right. Let's move on. So from there, it was theater. I graduated with a fine arts degree in lighting design. Spent a little time in working my way up through up to the Broadway ranks, although I never really got there. For what other decisions we make, we move towards having a family, changing careers, making sure that the kids get what they need in the family becomes the priority. And I moved into manufacturing, got my MBA in product management and marketing, came up through cell phones of all things, moving further and further into consumer product. And then learned about the position in ZEISS, and it really was the culmination of all of the things that I do: high quality products, luxury products, high end things, consumer products, which the photo dabbles in, as well as doing the marketing. And I got to do all those things all in one position, and it's been a great fun time ever since. Trombone,
If
by the way,
everybody
was the
was
yeah.
trying, I wanted to ask, but honestly, if everyone could tell their story that eloquently and quickly, like that was unbelievable. So congrats. That was like you just broke a record. So you played trombone. I only asked because I have a son who's a jazz musician. He's 14, but he's been playing clarinet for, I don't know, 8 years, and he just moved to saxophone, which he calls like a big, easy clarinet. And he loves it. And he's all jazz all the time. And all my family's from New Orleans. So trombone is a big deal for us. So did you play for many years, or was it like you got to that point where the guy complained and you were just like, I'm out?
No, I played all through middle and senior high school. And I went to the Hart School of Music, which is in Hartford, Connecticut, at the University of Hartford. And I got in there, and I was playing and playing and playing, and there comes a point where you love it and you do it for the love, or it just becomes work and it's not fun. And I was kind of teetering that way, and I was, and yeah, and there were people that really kind of pushed you. You're never going to be anything. I remember distinctly, they were some of the professors were like, you went to high school with such and such as a band director, and you're still in music? Really? Wow. Okay. And I was like, back then I had no idea what they were talking about, but Yeah, there was always challenges there. I find them in every career. There's always somebody you need to figure out how to work with or work around.
Yeah.
And that definitely happened. There were whiplash incidents where things got thrown.
I don't want my kid to see it. Like, I don't want him to get discouraged by that dynamic. Although for the right, like obviously in that relationship in that movie, like it was very symbiotic. Like it wasn't just an
Mhm.
abusive relationship. It was, you could argue that that's exactly what made him great. But,
Well, and sometimes you come into that. I especially in theater when I started, they said there's many of you who aren't going to make it through this program. And they were right, and I don't know, that for us, that was the way it was. You came in, you had to do the work. And if you didn't, they handed you a quarter. I mean, that was as horrible as that sounds, there
Mhm.
was a quarter sitting on the desk of the dean, and they would hand it to you and say, I think you're going to go home.
Oh
Call
my
home,
God.
get your ride,
Oh,
and
I thought
Mhm.
they were giving you a quarter like you're a street musician. You're only worth a quarter.
no, no, it was the quarter to
All
call
your
home for your
ride.
ride.
So did you get the quarter? You
I
literally,
did not.
okay.
I was it was 17 entered that year for lighting design, and I was one of three that they passed through, and only two of us got degrees. One got a certificate.
Mhm.
So that it was hard. I will say that I graduated with a lot of Tony Award winners that in the years that I was there. So there was something going on that I definitely wanted to be a part of.
Mhm.
But that's, as you bring that forward, that's the ability to work under those conditions and problem solve, which is one of the keys in theater, is really something that is another thing that I bring forward. There isn't a problem you can bring that I can't solve.
Mhm.
And that's really part and parcel to a lot of the film industry as well. Those that excel know how to figure out how to work with the people they have, how to excel at that, and how to work with a lot or a little, depending on what you need.
Yeah, I mean, I also wonder if just to connect it to optics, like learning, like basically designing light for theater, how it relates to lighting for film, right?
Yep.
And I mean, yeah, I'm a big fan of Zeiss lenses, so I know that it's like, you can do all the work, and if you're using, piece of crap glass, you can only go so far.
Right.
But is that was the birth of your interest in visual arts in a sense then?
Yeah, yeah, and really lighting, because you can blast all the light in the world onto a stage or onto a set, and it doesn't make a difference. If you can do it with one light or two lights, you make a much more interesting scene, and that was one of the keys, is to see how you can work with as little as possible. And I find that now the films that attract my attention are the people that pay attention to that detail and aren't just throwing things on set because they can or because they have the budget. They're actually
Mhm.
figuring out how to use a little bit of light to get what they need.
Yeah, we talked to the DPs of well, we've done a couple conversations with our events, but I was talking to the DPs from 100 Years of Solitude, that Netflix show,
Mhm.
who built the city of Macondo
Oh yeah, yeah.
in South
Mhm.
America to shoot it, and they were talking about that, like, it's not about a lot of light, it's about the right light.
It is.
It's a tough thing because I mean I've seen so many, like, it's funny, we were watching something the other night and it looked like a USA movie. It looked like a TV movie. Everything was completely bright, completely flat, and it was a big movie. I won't say what it was, but um, it sort of strips it of something when, and that might have been the studio saying everything needs to be above this f-stop, or between these two values, and those are the rules, and you kind of have to work within those guidelines. But then there's stuff where you see all kinds of play, a lot of like high key, low key alternatives, and just the right decisions. So,
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's key. And that, the ability of, we'll come back to optics here, but the ability of the lenses to actually deliver that light to the sensor, that our abilities in not only in the lenses, but in the camera sensors as well, have really come full circle. I mean,
Mhm.
Just, I have a photographer friend who, one of my ambassadors who shoots on stage, and he shoots, I don't know, ISO 32,000 because he can. And
Mhm.
it's gorgeous. And that's one of the things he talks about is just the ability of the equipment to allow him to be able to create wherever he is. And that's what we're finding. And I think that that's what's headed towards allowing people to be in their craft, is you can think about it and you can do these things and you can push the envelope of the equipment to really create and really engage your audience.
Probably one of the smartest things I've ever done for my career. It gave me all the tools that I needed to be able to jump into a new career.
Getting myself into a mindset, thinking like an editor, and being around people that I can talk to on that level was really invaluable to me.
A lot of the things that I learned from that class, I still think about.
I loved the classroom. I loved the computer stations. We built a sense of community.
And it also instills a lot of confidence in you to take that and go out into the world.
After I took the class, I felt very prepared to take the next step.
I owe Manhattan Workshop the career that I have right now. Things have been going great, and I really have the Manhattan Workshop to thank for that.
Yeah, I remember the first time. This was years, because it's probably considered a legacy lens now. It was a ZF Prime 85, and it must have been, I don't know how fast those are. 2.0, 2.8. They must be faster than 2.0.
They got redesigned, but yeah, but they're about 1.4 now.
Yeah, so just like, because you can't not notice what it looks like when you look through a camera and see that image.
Right.
It was for portrait stuff, like those like testimonial promos where it's like a person and it's like they're barely like, right, you basically, like, it's this tiny sliver of focus was the effect, and it's just like what else? Okay, I guess I'm done. I don't need to do anything. The lens does all the heavy lifting. Are those still in wide use? I mean, they're not computerized, so I would imagine no one's using them now.
You'd be surprised. There is a pivot on the photo side, and I think you're seeing it on Cine too, where people are going back to more manual creativity. Leica M mount lenses are doing really well. Leica had their best year ever, they reported last year. So people are going back and wanting to create their own look, and that's really what I see today. Is people want to differentiate, they want to be individuals, and the easiest way is with the optics, or you go back to film and just go nuts. And that's really what people are doing. And you see it with just the number of lenses on the photo and cine side. There are so many different options. That's that, and it just allows everybody to create in the way they want to create.
We usually ask about trends in the industry, and it just hit me as we're talking, because ordinarily we speak with editors and other professionals. So this is the first time really I get to ask this. Do film directors, do film industry people say, oh, I like the way that movie was filmed, I wonder what lens was used? And then do they just call you up and say, I'd like to order the 1987 lens that was used in this movie? Like, is that all cataloged?
It is, and to some extent. One of the things that is that we do is I don't sell direct, but I will help you identify lenses. And you're absolutely right. Right now, you watch and everybody's shooting anamorphic, but that's because they like the look. It's the in look right now. But yeah, I think of it for a while there, about once or twice a year, I'd have somebody asking for the the Barry Lyndon lens, the what was it, the 0.750 mil that Kubrick shot with. And I'm like, great, there are 3 of them still here on the planet Earth. The rest are on the moon. And they're like, no. And it gets into a conversation that we don't have to talk about here, but people are like, oh, I need to shoot wide open, so I need that lens. Where can I rent it? I'm like, I don't know. We have one in our museum, and I think somebody rents in Germany, but that's two pieces.
Wow.
The rest are in private collection. Yeah, every now and then somebody will do, or somebody will say, "Hey, I've got this lens. Here's the serial number," and we do have an archivist, terrific guy over in Germany, and he can tell you when it was made, where it was shipped to, and who it was sold to back in the day. So we really do track that stuff.
Jason, you had a question.
Yeah, I have a question. Like, so with all the technology change, like virtual productions and stuff like that, have you guys had to evolve with that too to suit that? Is there like more, like what has that like brought to changes in ZEISS?
So it's all about the data. And for us, I mean, optics are great. Optics are fantastic. But if for virtual production and volumetric production as well, you got to know everything. I need to know pupil entrance distance, focal distance, aperture. We actually started to incorporate in about 2017 with the CP3 lenses. We started to incorporate the Cook/I protocol. And so we offer, I think there's 16 or so standard attributes that are provided through that protocol from the lens to the camera and out as sidecar files or embedded in the EXF file. And that information is paramount because you guys know this, but I'll say it, from this side too.
I was just going to say, just for people who didn't get what you said, I think that would be very smart.
Yeah, sure. So when you're shooting against a green screen, and this is very easy technology now. Even you can do it in your home for your TikTok videos. But if you're shooting against the green screen and you're trying to incorporate a background against active live people and foreground props and things, there is a point at which you need to be able to control that. The camera can look at the green screen, but the camera and lens only sees this distance. But if you've got a wide expanse behind you, or you're trying to approximate a room behind it, there's still some depth of field there, and the camera doesn't understand that. At least on its own, it knows where the green screen is, and that's the distance. But there's a depth of field, so you need to be able to approximate that. And the only way to do it is to know where the attributes of the lens, so I can rebuild it in the green screen image that I'm projecting. Otherwise, you get into the uncanny valley, and everything looks close but not real. So in order to make it real, you need to know the attributes of the lens so I can remake my plates with that depth of field. And if you're doing motion, you need to know where the camera is, the position of the camera in the three axes, X, Y, and Z, so that you can now move the background not only so that it looks right, but that the depth of field is correct as well. And with that technology, that's what we're moving into now with we have a lens camera tracking equipment, which is called the Syncraft Scenario equipment. And that allows not only for camera tracking, but for all of that information about the lens. Because to go one step further is I need to know the attributes of the lens, but I need to know the lens look as well, because, I don't want to tell everybody here, but no lens is perfect. Every lens has a look.
Except yours.
Oh no, ours do too. Absolutely. And that's why people choose them. They want to go to a master prime, or they like the softness and the organic feeling of the Supreme Prime, or they want the flare of the radiance. Or you go to the Cook look, or you get your Ingenue zooms because they do what they do very well, and it's a desired look, and that's great. But I need to know that look, because I need to take, for my VFX artists, I need to be able to take it away so I can do my compositing or my match moving accurately, and then put the look of the lens back on. So you either have to map it, on the tech bench, or you need to have that LUT already pre-prepared, and we do. All of our ZEISS lenses have that. It come with that information embedded in the data, and it's when you apply that through the scenario technology that we have for camera tracking, it marries the two together, and you get a very accurate data representation of what the camera's seeing, so that you can apply that to your LED wall or your green screen composite.
It's wild. It's funny you're mentioning this. And I just unscrewed a C-mount Ingenue zoom from my digital Bolex that I'm having the founder of the company put a new battery in because it's been dead forever, but they still have value. These cameras, people really love the look of this. It was just Rafi, you wouldn't know this, but it was an early raw digital cinema camera, very difficult to shoot with, very low light, right? ISO 800 max, but like people go crazy for the image, for the way it captures the way the sensor works. And I learned on an Angenieux Zoom. So it was like, oh, wow, this thing will fit. So I found one used and it was beautiful. It's fast and, a heavy breather like all of them were. So it was, but I just took it off because it's like, it's this long. I'm like trying to fix it at home and it's like knocking over stuff on the end of the table. But those lenses you're right. There's something special about, like, if you want a look, you have options. It sounds like you guys have a staggering amount of options. And not to mention, some of the idea of like just how a set of your primes will match, right? Like just you can switch up and down the range and you're going to get that consistent look so that you're not having to make adjustments later that you don't want to make. There's a predictability to using your glass.
There is, and that's one of the things that ZEISS is very good about is the consistency lens to lens. And we can even go a little bit, if you really need matched pairs or matched lenses, we can do that. But you're right. One of the things that we try to stay away from is a variation in the color. Specifically color. So back until these last lenses, the most recent iterations of the lenses, we had very specifically what was the ZEISS look, and it was the control of color, the control of sharpness, and then what we call the micro contrast, and essentially our lenses are very contrasty, but they're all contrasty. They all handle color. They're all sharp in the same way. To the point where people love your master primes. They're a little too clinical. They're a little too sharp. Can I sandblast them? Somebody asked me. I was like, well, you can. And that's why you see the changes now to the Supreme primes, which have, I don't want to say warm because they're not, but they're like a nice warm hug. They have a lot of character. They're very cinematic. But we chose that lens style specifically with the fact that the color again is consistent, because you don't want to hand it to a colorist and every shot they have to adjust. If they can take and know that the lenses are Supreme Prime or their Master Prime, and then I can set my LUT and I'm done. I can get back to editing where the real meat and potatoes is. So that's what we'd like to do, is have a lot of consistency lens to lens.
Well, I guess the economics actually play a huge role because either you're shooting it correctly the first time and saving on the editing, or I wouldn't say shooting it incorrectly, but shooting it differently, but then spending more time in the editing room.
Yeah, the more variation you can get away from on set, the better off you're going to be. I interviewed Robert McLaughlin, and that was one of the key comments he made. Is he's like, yeah, I've been on shoots where the director wanted to use this glass he found in Russia from the 50s. And he said, but I will go to a lens with a standardized housing that I know that has consistency every time, because I can shoot with that old lens, but every time I change a lens, it's going to add 10 or 15 minutes to set the camera back up correctly. And over a shoot, that's $1 million. So he can save the money and still provide the looks that he's comfortable with, knowing that he has the comfort and the consistency of a more modern style lens and lens housing.
Is there I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, and that's something to take into consideration, when you're going for the look is am I going to make my days on set? And that's always key as well.
I mean, is it out of fashion to say, get me the cleanest, sharpest image I can get, because there's so many options in post that if everything's consistent, I can apply the look of that Russian lens and, make it warm, fuzzy, dirty, you name it. But let me start with a baseline. Or is it just not, is that not really what people want to kind of like get the vintage lenses, get dirty, and like, I don't know, create that look and bake it in.
It really goes, and that's a great question, and I've heard it all ways. There really is a comfort in knowing that the more data and the more consistency I can provide downstream to the others in the workflow, the better off we're going to be. And you're absolutely right. There are people that will shoot that way, that there's more consistency in that sharpness and the f-stop T as well. And and that's one way of doing it. A lot of cinematographers now like to do it in camera, because not only can I provide something that's already done at edit that needs a light touch, but I can sit on set with my director and I don't have to say, I know what it looks like, but don't worry, I'm going to fix it. You could say, here in your video village, here is what the look is. I've applied my LUTs. These are the lenses. This is everything. This is the package. And you give comfort to your entire design team that way. And it just makes for an easier flow to the work process.
But I do feel if you're going to use a vintage Russian lens on purpose, if you're going to elect to do that, you should have no video assist. You should just shoot and move on, just like you were shooting film in the old days. And then you can get dailies in 24 hours and see what you get. And that's the price you pay. If you want to be, it's like you want to go hardcore, do it that way.
Absolutely. And I'll be right there with you all the way.
So that would be insane, by the way. Please, nobody do that. You don't have to do that.
So we're gonna wrap things up. Usually we wrap things up with a one takeaway. So Jason, you've been waiting very, very patiently for your one takeaway, just in terms of filming equipment. You've been in the industry a long time. What's your one takeaway? Then Josh, and then Tony, give us your.
Sure. It's not going to be too serious, but I now know that like lenses are like dating. So like it's like speed dating. If you want someone warm and cuddly, you go. You want the Russian, So that's my takeaway, is that we're definitely talking to a lens guy, because he knows how to describe everyone as a potential date. That's my takeaway.
Very true.
Yeah, I mean, mine is that it's like, there's so much, you've got options. It's just like, it's such an incredible, it's like where technology meets, it's like where analog and digital combine. Like, you sort of like find these ways to, sort of celebrate and protect tradition. And so like, boy, also, have like more metadata than you could ever eat on the post side to sort of help align everything and kind of take all of that expression and organize it and make use of it downstream. That's pretty intense. When you think about like screwing a lens on the end of a camera, you know what I mean? Like it's just like an opening up like just sitting there waiting 30 seconds, closing it down. Like, just it's come a long way.
Absolutely has. Yeah.
Tony,
there's so much data.
Yeah, very, very, very curious. If you could wrap up many years of knowledge into one takeaway for our audience that's watching this, what can you tell everyone?
Yeah, there's don't be afraid don't be afraid to try things, to test things. And that's one of the keys. If you have the opportunity, and certainly we all have some lenses in our kit, but we have others that may be available to us from our rental houses. Just test and go and see, and then sit down and look and see what works together, what camera and lens combinations. Have an idea going in. I think I want it to be this, but then be open to testing and be open to that, and just make sure that you understand the options. And then my one takeaway is pick three and show your director that, because the beauty of that position is it doesn't matter what the director chooses at then. I've already chosen three I like, so I win. And that's my one recommendation. And then just have fun. There's so many great combinations out there. Just enjoy it.
Yeah. And Tony, any events coming up, trade shows we should be on the lookout for?
We are going to be on the photo side. We'll be at Imaging USA down in Texas next weekend. And then, of course, we're at HPA Tech Retreat talking about some of the camera tracking equipment, and then where that's headed and what the future of virtual lens looks are. That's a topic for another time. And then, of course, we're at all of the Cine Gears, New York coming in March, and then the big one in LA in June.
Fantastic. Thank you. Jason, it's a new year. Please tell everyone what's going on at the Manhattan Edit Workshop.
Well, we have our classes in editing, color, visual effects, sound, and all that as usual. The one thing you might want to look forward to is that Josh has recently recorded a great event with the DPs of 100 Years of Solitude. So be looking for that. That's a good,
awesome.
Good
yeah.
talk.
Also, if it's out there now, the Nosferatu, the cinematographer, that was a pretty amazing looking film, and some of the backflips they had to, get into tight places and shoot some in strange locations. But it doesn't matter when you watch the thing; you're just so completely absorbed and terrified. They're so funny. They're both such different projects, but so absolutely beautiful. And then, of course, the creative teams, and you talk to them, just the dedication to craft is so obvious, like just living in it for years. And this, like you're saying, pick three, like all of those granular, tiny, there's thousands of them, and some are right, some are wrong. And like if the ratio works, you get bang, like this, something, this thing happens. And I think that happened on both of those projects, but it's just, I don't know. This is the fun stuff. Talking shop or MEWShop, so much better than teaching keyboard commands. I got to tell you, this is
don't say that. This is being recorded.
Well, we teach them both, but this is fun for me.
Right. All right, everyone. Thank you very much. I'm Ralphie Salem from Manhattan Edit Workshop. Once again, Josh Apter. Thank you, Jason Banky. Thank you, and Tony from ZEISS, aka Tony Wisniewski. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
All right. Thanks a lot, Tony.